Right. May we move on then to item 6 on the agenda, which is Organisational Development Strategy. Jo, I think it's back to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Excuse me if I get a bit excited about this. I think this is this is something that I hope everyone around the table is excited about, and I guess I hope people who are interested in working for us will look at this document and be energised by some of the ambitions expressed in here. I'm going to do a kind of a joint presentation with Tim, because Tim's going to say something a little bit about the vision stuff in this document. But the purpose of this document is to explain how we will have a planned approach to the development of the Commissioning Board in a way that supports the Commissioning Board's ambitious and compelling vision. So at the heart of all this is what the Commissioning Board stands for, what it wants to achieve, and how we will develop an organisation that meets those objectives. And Tim's going to say something in a little while about the section of the paper that talks about vision. So what the paper aims to do is explain how we are trying to align key strategies, what interventions we are putting in place, and systems and policies we're putting in place in a planned way to support the vision. For the purposes of ease, I guess, because there's quite a lot to do, the paper is concentrating on the setup phase of the board. So in the paper, you'll see it splits the board's development into 3 phases. A phase that we call setup, which is up until March, because before March we don't take on our full range of responsibilities. But during that phase, we'll be building our structure, recruiting our people, refining our sense of vision and purpose, putting in place basic systems and processes. The establishment phase, which starts when we take up our full set of responsibilities and runs for the first year, where we'll be building and developing core capabilities, bedding in and testing systems and processes, running them for the first time on a business cycle, and establishing ourselves as a partner of organisations in the system. And then a maturity phase from April 14 onwards. Clearly, organisations never quite mature, but you kind of get my point. But this paper focuses on what we need to do between now and the end of March to set ourselves on a fair track to achieve the vision that's set out in the paper. And it defines some measurable objectives that we need to achieve between now and the end of March, each objective being supported by an OD work stream, a set of actions and interventions that we're going to take and that we're going to monitor. I think it's important to say that, Chairman, you said at the beginning of the meeting the board does have meetings outside of the public arena. Sometimes we have development sessions, and the board did discuss this in July in a development session. One of the things we've been trying to do with the OD approaches to the board is develop them in the style and the manner that the NHS Commissioning Board wants to conduct all its work, with openness, with transparency, with inclusion, participation, close working between all parts of the organisation and our partner organisations. So some of the concepts in here have been tested fairly widely, and there's been fairly wide collaboration and discussions around the content of this. The paper sets out our headline vision. So as an organisation, why we exist, how we work, what we do, how we'll be successful. And Tim's been coordinating that work to date. Again, there's been quite a lot of involvement in that, and I'll hand over to him in a minute to talk about it. But it's that the OD strategy is designed to support. And I hope, as I say, when people read it, they'll be excited by it. And they'll find it ambitious and they'll find it compelling. And some bits of it represent a fairly significant step change based on what we do at the moment. And as we are, just go back to an earlier question I had about induction, as we're recruiting people, part of the induction process involves taking people through that and further building on it and refining it. The Commissioning Board I think it's worth just reflecting on the position that the Commissioning Board finds itself in. We've talked before about there has never been an organisation like the Commissioning Board in the NHS, and that presents some significant opportunities and it presents some challenges. And the paper goes through some of those. So there is an opportunity in partnership with CCGs to channel the NHS investment in ways that improve outcomes for patients and do that relentlessly. We will have nearly 4,000 staff working for a single organisation to a single shared purpose. Not had that before. Our leverage will be considerable. We'll be able to lever clinical leadership in a way that we've not seen in the NHS before. But we do have some challenges as well. So when you look at where we are coming from, we've currently got a set of separate statutory organisations, over 160 statutory organisations doing mostly what the commission, similar things to what the commissioning board is going to be doing, and we're going to try and put that together to create a single strong voice, but one that's also locally sensitive. Our employees will come from many different sources, different organisations with different cultures. We need to make sure we recruit the right people that support the vision and what we're trying to do, people with the right values. As Moira pointed out earlier, in the setup phase, we're going to have people doing more than one job, working in the old system, working in the new system, switching hats. And we need to work through, as Bill's just been talking about, our place in the wider system. So what the paper suggests is, for the setup phase, there are broadly 5 objectives, and we've tried to make these as measurable as possible. So one is about getting the right people in. You'll notice in there we've talked about diversity, so to attract and retain the best people from diverse backgrounds with values that are congruent with our vision. So first of all, getting the right people. The second thing is about what we do, so getting the right systems, processes and policies that support the vision. The third one is about how we do things, so the working patterns and behaviours that support the vision and objectives, and in particular we've talked previously about matrix working. The fourth one is about a focus on our leadership cadre to make sure that they can support all our employees in the achievement of this vision. And the fifth one is about developing this strong sense of shared purpose, culture and brand for the organisation. So each one of those objectives has a massive activity supporting it. To give you a flavour, there are some more information in the appendix about that, but to give you a flavour, so for example, on the first one, the way we've aligned some of the recruitment activity to the vision is the job descriptions and person specifications have been built on a template based on values that supports the vision. We've had partners on interview panels, so we've either had CCG leaders or we've had people from other sectors on interview panels. Interviews have specifically focused on values, so we've asked specific questions aimed to pull out values. We are, in terms of strategies, systems, processes, we're very aware of the need to align some key strategies. The most obvious ones that spring to mind, but I'm not meant to be exhaustive in this, is the estate strategy. So the estates, I suppose, are the physical manifestation of the commissioning board, and it's really important, I think, that the commissioning board looks and feels like a single organisation to help people get into the mindset of working for a single organisation. And the IT strategy, which needs to support the way people can work flexibly around the country. We're also developing a performance review system for staff, which will look at how we can review the performance of staff who work in a matrix, so we get views from around the organisation about how staff perform. We are looking at team development and how we do that in a way that is coherent and consistent. We've already started executive team development, and I talked earlier about the leadership forum we've established and the induction programme arrangements. For the board's assurance, I've put a section in about the resources that we've allocated to this work. So we do actually have some employed staff who are OD experts. We've got some OD expertise at the National Support Centre, but I think what's important is we are also putting some out into the regions. I think that's quite important for the kind of single organisational feel, but we will buy in expertise where we need it, and we have made budgetary provision for that. I'm going to turn to Tim now, so I know you'll want to say something about the vision bit, but the final thing I will say, so you don't have to come back to me, is that one of the recommendations in the paper is that we look at this again in February. We take stock of how we are doing, and we look at the next phases of the strategy and where we should be going.
Tim.
So just very briefly, you know, as we've been discussing really throughout every presentation, we can't and shouldn't underestimate the challenge of putting the patient at the heart of our purpose. And you know, we've a lot of things have been said about that for many years, and none have really been made real in the health service, indeed really not in any public service. And so to some extent our challenge is that although we've been talking about it for a long time, we haven't done it, and this is the time we now have to really deliver on that objective. The purpose of the vision, therefore, is to, in this context, is really to say that this is a matter of each one of us around this table, as much as those we employ, to take not only seriously but fundamentally as the reason, as their core personal career objective, that is about making this service a genuinely patient and customer service. So we've broken this vision, which obviously is an iterative, living, dynamic enterprise, has been sort of broken down into 3 parts, really, just to try and operationalise some of the values that are captured in the NHS Constitution, and just more broadly in us as human beings who are also patients in our own rights from time to time. The first, therefore, looks at kind of, you know, why do we exist? What actually is the point of this? On one level, it's a horrifyingly bureaucratic process of just spending X numbers of tens of billions of pounds. But on another level, the level we should be operating at, it's absolutely a human service. It's about identifying and serving the needs of every individual patient, which will be us at some point in the future. And we've deliberately used language which some people will find challenging, but we need to challenge ourselves. We said that we want this to be a world-class customer service, and that word customer, you know, what are we? Are we patients or citizens or customers? These are the debates that we now need to start really reflecting on. We've sort of looked at the vision in terms of, well, what does that mean for the way we as individuals should work in this new organisation? And what we've said is that the first thing we've said, which I hope will reassure and encourage and excite, as Joe was saying, you know, us as people and others who'll look at this, that the very first thing is that we prioritise patients in every single decision we make. Now, actually, the implications of that are so profound, I don't think we can necessarily yet quite figure out what it means. But as a board, we've got to start taking very seriously how we, for example, even in our own considerations, are very clearly doing that there's no question that in every deliberation we have, it is about the patient, that the priority is focused. And there's another, just pulling out another key component of our pledge, in a way, to ourselves as employees and partners in this organisation, is that everybody has the right to a good idea. One of the things I've always observed, in a way with sadness, looking on at the NHS for so many years, has been, and other public service organisations, is the way that there's a kind of a bit of a lack of willingness to kind of often listen to ideas from outside or even from inside. So that's really another important principle, is that part of our legitimacy as an employing and serving organisation will be that everybody, from patient through to the most junior member of staff, has the right to have a good idea and for that to be taken seriously. And then the third part of this vision, again, just to highlight 2 really important elements for me, at least, and Joe highlighted this. I mean, I believe all this is about 2 core principles. One is transparency, and the other is participation. And it's for that reason that those 2 principles are how we must measure our success. So in the first 2 statements we make around how we shall hold ourselves to account as a successful organisation and as successful people, is that we demonstrate that we are indeed actively encouraging participation from patients in the way we operate, and that we're giving patients control, much more control, real control, over how they can choose to interact with us, with the health service, with their own care. Now, these are all really big things to say. They're all fundamental. It's really easy to say them. But I really hope that in our OD process and as an organisation, as we develop, we're able, big challenge, big risk in a way, to make it something which each one of us and each person who joins us takes away with themselves and considers what the implications are for them. And just to follow that, I'm planning, as we've discussed already, to come back to the next board meeting to give a bit more of a sense of how we propose to make some of those commitments as an organisation real for the patient, the citizen, the public, which I'll pick up at the next meeting. But this is not just an exciting agenda, this is a radical world-beating agenda. Nobody has ever done this meaningfully or with seriousness before, and we should recognise that that's the privilege that we have.
Well, thank you, Joe and Tim. Let me invite observations from the board.
Crikey.
Yeah.
No, I think this is precisely why I got involved in this endeavour. I think the vision is truly should shift the experience of the public of the NHS. The reason why I made the suggestion of the and it is of the subcommittees that I think we'll need to put a lot of attention into this as a board, and I can't see how we're structurally going to do it because it impacts on everything. That's how big it is from an organisational view, and we are shifting. We talked about organisational design before, but we are shifting the shape of the biggest beast in NHS from a kind of pyramidal structure that was bureaucracy to a much more, I don't know, project-based, innovative, imaginative, outward-looking, horizontal organisation, and that's a massive, massive shift in the mindsets of virtually everybody that we've. And so I'm interested in the what happens next bit. I mean, the vision I haven't got a problem with. It's like about time, but it's what happens next, and how does the person at the sharp end in the inverse care law get this, and how do we bring it into the business that we're in? You know, it's the middle managers. You know, the middle, the top, the middle, and the bottom. How do we do that? That's the bit that I'm really excited about getting engaged in.
I agree with that. I think, and I like the way it's set out a lot. But given that, speaking to patients, I think in paragraph 9, and I know why we've done it. We exist to uphold the NHS Constitution, and you've got a long paragraph. But actually, I think we exist to save and improve lives should be number 1 rather than second. And I think it would, speak to patients. And another slightly pedantic point, really, which is about being responsible for an organisation. Maturity seems to me to be a very big leap for a very young organisation. You talk about conception, birth, and suddenly we're mature. And I think we should also recognise that this is a continuous process of development. I don't know whether we can call it development or continuous development or something like that, but just maturity sounds why we've done it, and we know we won't have done it really. So small points, but a very positive effort.
In the process of developing this, if we can role model the vision we want to create, so it's about participation, it's about engaging clinicians and clinicians' organisations, patients and patient organisations, and just start as we mean to go on, I suppose. Just endorse everything else. And one trivial comment to Victor's point, I think we do need to give this the time necessary. I wonder if it is a subcommittee, because we're all going to want to be on the subcommittee for this one.
Well, it's either a subcommittee or it's a committee.
I think that's right.
Chief Executive.
I mean, this is genuinely exciting, and this is genuinely why some time ago I thought that the commissioning board was the right place to go and work right from the beginning, and it's kind of putting in that spirit of it. And I think one of the things about this, about the way the vision's set out, is that it does have to be living and breathing and developing. And I think one of the issues very often is that you write a vision, you stick it on a poster, you put it on the wall, and that's it. Whereas this is much more about everybody who works for us gets this and starts to bring and understand what it happens. Because underneath all of this is the idea of, in the jargon, a boundaryless organisation, an organisation which is capable of everybody in it being able to connect with everybody else, that hierarchy does not stand in the way of great ideas and great ways of of working, and that we have to translate that into the way we work and the way we organise ourselves. And I think the OD plan is a really kind of significant part of doing that. I mean, I think this is the work of the board. You know, I don't think it is absolutely what we are there to do. And when we kind of rethink all of this, and we've got a bit of time to kind of try and work all this through, we should think about the way we structure the work that we do and how we do it to build on this, not try and put it somewhere else. This is, I think, a really, really important thing, and in a sense puts flesh on a whole set of, you know, if you think about the past 2 years or so, it has predominantly been a discussion about structure. Whereas this makes it live and breathe, because we are essentially a human organisation. I think it's a really important step forward.
Absolutely, and as we look at the agenda for the forthcoming next 2 or 3 meetings, which are really heavy, but actually this is what's essential for them. I mean, as we get into issues around planning and allocation, for example, this vision must drive the agenda rather than have the heavy technical agenda drive out the vision, which I think is otherwise a risk. So may we spend some time, Bill, thinking through with you and with Tim and with Joe and with all of our team how we really integrate the development of the board over the next 6 months. Because it's quite easy to slip into default mode, which is that there's all these complicated decisions that are coming along. We have to make them by these times. And by the way, there's the organisational development which takes place concurrently but not in an integrated way.
Yeah. So this is a great danger for us at the moment, isn't it? In a sense, you think, well, we'll just get everything sorted out and then we'll think about what we're going to do. Yeah. When this is building it into the way we do it, and that's the key thing, I think.
Mind you, just getting everything sorted
out.
Yeah,
I'm going to say, that bit. Not consider that red. Yeah.
Well, look, shall we say that the vision is endorsed with enthusiasm? Yeah. And which is every one of us here to have set out for us what really is the belief system of the board and how we will take that through. So thank you both to Joe and to Tim. We will work very closely with you to develop it, and I would like to think through how we continue to engage the non-executives deeply in this process, because we all come with experience of other organisations, and I know that we all wish to work very hard on this paper.